Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to the 11 o'clock business meeting with Public Services. I see building and planning is ready to go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. I just wanted to touch base on our staffing levels. The last two, our recent two hires, our permit specialists were on board last Monday. And on Wednesday, our final planner is starting. So we will be fully staffed on Wednesday. So we're very excited. It's a long time coming, so we're super excited. And I'm gonna turn it over to Mike Wilson and Wayne Nelson to go over the monthly reports and just let the board know kind of where we're at and permitting levels, and then we'll do any miscellaneous.
Good morning, Mike Wilson, Building and Planning. Yeah, it's a good thing we're up to staff because we've been pretty busy, and the numbers reflect that. It's just slightly down a bit from last year. For instance, the new residential starts, permits issued, about 6% down this time last year, but the commercial development is increased huge, 80% up. And that's.
Did you say 8 or 80?
80%.
80?
80% year to date from last year. And which isn't really surprising simply because commercial industrial work tends to forecast out quite a bit into the future. And they're not going to, change their process in the short term. So it's good to hear. And, you're aware of some of the projects, Port of Kalama, West Rock, so on. We have, and a lot of little in-betweens, something like 23 commercial applications just in the month of June. Many have been issued. Beaver Bay out, the reservoirs, campground improvements. So a lot of work that was in process and forecasted is now coming into play. So quite a bit of that going on. And interestingly, as we
Question?
Pardon me?
80% in terms of dollars,
Number of permits.
number of permits.
In number of permits, and 80% increase. And I said that all the way, across the board from cell tower construction modifications to the larger projects such as the ports and everything in between. So as I said,
And just to be sure, tract homes are not included in this.
no, the single family dwellings are about 6% down from this time last
No,
year.
I'm just trying to define, I didn't want to come up ahead of you. I want to be sure I have a good firm grip on what is commercial.
Oh, yeah, it does not include single family dwellings
Okay, thank you.
or two family dwellings for that matter. That commercial is that which is administered through the International Building Code as compared to 1 and 2 family dwellings, which are under the residential code.
Would it be possible for you to show us the impact that new apartment complex in Lexington has had in terms of revenue and, increased property taxes and all those kind of factors? Because
Well, that may be something that the assessor could better address. That the one you're speaking of is 15 buildings plus a clubhouse, 198 units.
Okay.
I believe currently they have temporary occupancy on 5 of the buildings and the swimming pool. And their target is to have full occupancy by the end of October.
Okay.
We've been issuing temporary occupancies based upon that target date. I had a conversation with them last week because we're trying to reconcile things, make certain the addressing is correct and so forth for emergency response, because they've been making some changes during the process as well. My understanding is that occupancy has not been a challenge for them. No sooner than they get them done, than they get them filled. So it's been a great, boon for the community. Good location.
I mean,
Good resources.
all the growth that's happened in Lexington
Mhm.
in the last, 10, 15 years, I think is probably directly attributed to the bridge.
Oh, yeah,
That has made a
that's huge.
huge difference in
Yeah.
making it more convenient for Clark County commuters, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, interesting though, interestingly, we mentioned also in the BPAC meeting is.
Before you
the-
go there,
What?
have another question.
Have a question?
Oh, we struggle here trying to define the mix of commercial we like or should shoot for. So is there a way you can maybe give us a one-time shot at these numbers? How many are for tourism? How many are for high tech? How many are for construction or whatever it might be? Because I know, for example, what's on my mind is that I would desperately like this county to partake in high tech at some point, but we seem not to do that very well. And I think Crest Park was designed kind of for be one of a place where an incubation of these kinds of companies could start. So I'd just like to know what the nature of the business is.
I could provide you with a breakdown if that's what you'd like. I mean, I don't have that in front of me, but yeah.
Right. A simple email would be fine, right?
Sure. That would be good to know what the trends are.
Yeah. Well, currently the port projects, well, Port of Klama, another new vanilla, blank building that they will receive tenants. Very similar to the ones that are there now. And of course, West Rock. West Rock is also making improvements on ancillary structures in support of all their activities, their truck loadout facilities, their electrical control rooms. These are all different
Email.
permits. Pardon me?
Email,
Pardon me?
email it, please.
Oh, yeah, certainly I can do that. So yeah, I can put together a list and, the diversity of projects, the nature of what we're receiving. Also, a lot of cell tower co-locations, a lot of that going on. So anyway, yeah, I can put together that. And as I said, what we brought together in the BPAC meeting as well was the significant increase in ADUs. Since the ordinance was written such that it allowed some flexibility there, that's doubled, since last year. So a lot of people making good use of that.
So-
And yet the cottage subdivision hasn't gone anywhere, right? They've
Not
not
that I'm
broken
aware of.
ground. There's,
Wayne may be able to address that. It's not yet hit the ground as far as building permits are concerned.
So you began this last topic with the BPAC. I missed the tie-in between ADUs and BPAC.
Yeah, it says, at our monthly BPAC meeting, we present, what's the state of business activity and so forth, number of permits issued and so forth. And it was at that time that was presented that, it was noticed that ADU applications had doubled since last year. Which is obviously directly related to, number one, the public awareness that they can do such a thing, and of course, the advantage of doing such a thing. So,
so that means next month you'll be able to report that homelessness is no longer a problem, right?
And I think at one point in time, you guys made some adjustment on how you interpreted the use of septic systems on that too. I mean, Travis had talked about getting permitted for one time up front. If it was big enough, then you could add an ADU to it. I think some of that might have helped a little bit too, just
yeah,
understanding that.
exactly. Right, building 1, 2, as Tracy
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pass it over to Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne Nelson. So Mike largely captured the activity of the department as a whole. In general, the planning numbers generally reflect what we're also seeing in building. The exception to that is in the planning clearances, and that's the precursory review. And they can be independent of a building permit application. They're also valid for 5 years. And so I think we'll see those hit a cycle. We'll have a wave of them, and then they'll be valid for a period of time, and then we'll see a new wave. And so we're substantially down in planning clearance numbers. However, we're also reviewing them at a much quicker rate in general. We're also hitting around 25% in total of over-the-counter reviews. So in those instances where they don't necessarily trigger a critical areas review or additional review, we can issue those over the counter. So the overall time frame of those coming in is quicker, in addition to the number of over the counters we're issuing. Mike touched on the ADUs, so that's been pretty noticeable, the uptick in that. And then the other thing, and this is just more commentary than anything, is we're also seeing additional or new comments from both DOE and Fish and Wildlife, particularly with respect to our SEPA notices. And so they're emphasizing their state guidelines versus mandates of what they would like to see projects conditioned with. And so we've been responding to those in kind, but just to bring that to the board's attention.
Mr. Chairman, I've got, I'm feeling rather slow today. No laughing. Could you start again and try and tie it into an overall inference we might draw from what you're saying? So 28% was a number you said?
So I didn't give a percent. Oh, I'm sorry. So 25%, roughly a quarter of the planning clearance applications. And so the planning clearance can come in as an independent application, or it can be associated with a specific project. Yes.
Okay, so 25% of what number ties to what?
So we are year to date on planning clearances, we're at 280. For the month of June, we're at 44. So roughly 10 or 12 on a month, we would be able to do over the counter.
Okay, so do I infer that in instances that we didn't have before, that results for some instances are now over the counter?
Correct.
So that translates into a happy customer, I assume.
Exactly.
That means I walk in there with a plan and somebody's gonna look at it right then and there, and by the hour is up, I have the approval in my hand?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you. And then what was it you said after that? Or actually, I should say, what do you attribute that change to? Because I don't think we used to have that.
Correct. So the biggest change is staff training and familiarity, where the staff we have on board right now, they're gaining experience every day.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of cross training, a lot of in-house informational meetings, et cetera. And so we're pretty pleased. They've really come a long ways. And so they're able to recognize the red flags and the green flags. And when they can make that determination, we've also afforded them the discretion to do that.
Okay, the reason I stopped you is the public needs to know. And going too quick on these things doesn't
Certainly.
translate into something that the public can, okay.
Certainly.
So what was the next item? That's it.
So that was it. Also echoed the increase in the number of ADUs. That's been a very, I'll say favorable as well as popular permit. So we're seeing that. When we're talking about doubling the numbers, we're last year to date, we're at 12. This year to date, we're at 27. So, they're not huge numbers overall, but as more and more people are familiar with that option being out there, they're definitely partaking in that opportunity.
Although it's not information required that you get from the customer, I'm curious, do you have a notion whether those ADUs are for additional income or for mom and dad are moving in kind of thing?
It's been my experience that most of them that we're seeing are some sort of personal relationship, whether friend, family, parents, children, et cetera.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
So that's all we had. We just wanted to bring numbers forward to the board and let you know where we were.
Cool.
Do you have any
Okay.
questions for us?
Thank you.
Yeah, probably for you, Tracy, we do get the spreadsheets
Mhm.
but we're left to trying to decide what might be inferred from those numbers. If you could throw in a paragraph or two or three, depending on what it is, that notice this, and the implication is that.
Okay, they come from a different staff member, but I will gladly intercept them and do that before
Yeah,
we send them up.
That
Absolutely.
makes sense to you folks, yeah.
We also just like to come up and talk to you about them too, because it kind of gives you guys a flavor of what's going on out there.
I'm not saying in lieu of.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Public Works.
Oh, I did, sorry, I had, the SEPA policy, we were trying to get that, time to change on that. Remember, it was only 2 weeks for people to respond to certain stuff.
So we will have proposed ordinance amendments to you next month that have been through the planning commission. I would have to go back and look and see exactly what those recommendations are, but yes, we have looked at notice hearing requirements in addition to the timelines, the public posting requirements with the size of sign, location of signs, the radius of the adjacent neighbors from 300 feet to 500 feet. So we're expanding that radius. We're making more visible signs and we're extending the
Okay, thank
the
you.
dates.
Enough. Good morning.
Good morning.
Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. I bring glad tidings today. We worked last legislative session with our state representatives to get some additional funding for the Rock Creek Culvert. And last week I received via email the confirmation of which department it is coming from and the amounts. So we are receiving $2 million through Commerce in the state budget to work on our Rock Creek Culvert final project.
Now, is this the project Josh Weiss worked on for us?
Yes, we were very thankful for that help.
Fairly
so.
decent return on our investment.
Very good return on our investment. So next week they're holding the funding seminar on us starting to run the paperwork. So we'll get the paperwork running through. I had, as you remember, you asked me a few weeks ago what the design status was. I knew when we were working on this, I put the consultant kind of on a hold because I didn't know if it was coming through Commerce or WashDOT because their requirements are different. So now that I know that, I can start getting that project up and running, and we'll get this funding in place.
And the total estimate was is it 4 million?
It was 4 million, and that was including the temporary bridge. So we're guessing that the price has gone up some, and that'll be one of the things I asked the consultant to do right away, because we'll use this money, and then whatever it's running over, we can estimate to use the ARPA funds that we have and then return the rest. So.
Were you counting on these 1.95?
I was not counting on this money. We were moving forward and we were hoping for this money because I know you guys were hoping to get some of that ARPA money back.
And while I don't want to sound ungrateful at all, but I question the administration has nothing to do with the execution of the project, right? They're going to take $50,000 to do the paperwork of some kind, but has nothing to do with how you do the job.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think that falls under the golden rule.
Yeah.
So thank you, Commissioner, for the information to help us move forward with the consultant on that.
So I mentioned Josh Weiss, and that's kind of interesting because Josh also works for the local cities who several years ago went to the legislature to try to get lodging tax monies back. And we were able to prevent that from happening. And now we hired the opponent. So he's on our side now, right?
That's correct.
Until the check stops.
So, Josh is in our employee in some way as a consultant?
He works for Honeywell, I think is the consultant firm,
Correct.
right?
Okay.
He had been, I think when you first joined the commission, I think he was still on staff at Wasack. And then he went private.
Okay.
And
And so
we,
for this particular project, you included at your recommendation involving Josh.
Right.
correct, we reached out to Josh, had a couple meetings with Josh and his assistant Hannah and signed a small contract for them to move forward, pushing this through Olympia. A fairly small contract for the amount of, it was small enough that I was actually able to sign it in-house without having to come to you guys and then actually get a couple $1 million out of it. So,
That's one good payback.
yeah, great payback. So once again, thank you, Commissioner Weber. 911 lease termination notice. We got notice that they're now moving out of HOJ and into their new building. It sounds like per the letter was July 24th was their opening day, which is today. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got confirmation of that at all, if they're actually out of the new center or not. So there was a 2-month notice for us. So actually they're paying rent through September 30th of this year. They reached out to us asking maybe for a new lease for a smaller square footage area somewhere in the HOJ. So we'll be working with Mr. Diamond with that, trying to get a new lease together for a smaller space. I don't know exactly what that will be needed for, but I'll get the details to you guys. So I meet with Mr. Diamond, the executive director of 911, as you guys probably know.
Has there been any discussion at all about co-locating emergency management over at the 911 center? They're adjacent now and that seemed to make sense when we have incidents, but
I did ask that question to Larry a couple weeks ago during a meeting on a different subject. And his response was no, that I don't think they have space even at 911 now for all of them. So he's going to, the DEM is going to remain in the basement of HOJ.
Space wise, remind me how much space is in the new 911 building? It's like more than twice the size of what they have now. Mm,
I can't help you there. I have not toured the new 911 center, so I don't know the square footage.
Yeah, I used to remember, if I divide 13 million by 650, maybe I'd come close. But 20,000 square feet? No, that can't be.
well, they continue to have issues with their contractor though. And that's
Yeah.
been a huge headache. You're
Yeah.
probably familiar with. It's been if anything could go wrong, it went wrong with that contract and.
Well, yeah, it's actually, a lot of it's gone to the bonding company
Really?
and they're the ones making the decisions. Yeah.
Not good. So we have a lot of public works, and it's this middle of construction season for us. A lot of chip seal, striping will begin middle of August. An overlay is done, so yeah, just a normal, that's our public works list is fairly small. We're mainly working on other items. What you see on there is the funding, and also we've been working on the different leases around the county since it's under public works now.
So last week we went to a retirement reception at the boathouse.
Yeah.
Which meant we got reminded about how horrible the parking lot is to get there.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before. There was some landscaping issues and then I think
Right.
we're on track for some kind of
We're s-
overlay or.
We're still on track for overlay. We're looking at September.
September.
We are going out hopefully this week, actually tomorrow. We the scope of work for the arborist for the trees, cut back and removal. That's the scope of work was presented today at the supervisor meeting. They gave some suggestions. Tomorrow we get that online for hopefully a couple of weeks only, because we're hoping to trim the trees back in the month of August. So, and get everything cut back we need to, and remove the trees that need to be removed before we grind and overlay, which we're looking at doing while the weather's still good in September. And once again, that'll be just for the south parking lot and the east parking lot on the riverside and HHS. We're looking at doing the north parking lot in 2024. We're just for phase wise. We're going to run out of time this year to do all of that, because we've got to come behind also and stripe those parking lots when it's said and done. Commissioner?
Going back to 911, I just pulled the calculator out and it is 20,000 square feet. So that's at least twice what's there for combined 911 and DEM. That may be an irrelevant point, but if we were to move DEM there, we would be paying them rent then, right?
Probably so, I would guess. It'd be a contract in place, yes.
Right, and that wouldn't necessarily make sense to me if we have the space here, right?
It is, it's always struck me as being a little ironic. One of the big impetuses for moving 911 is to get out of the basement because it's under because of the water level of the river. But we keep emergency management there still. So which reason is more valid, is more valid?
Well, it's also, you keep getting me going. It's, a lot of things weren't done right.
When you were at the boathouse, could you tell any of the changes when you pulled up or inside?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Nice decorations and painting and.
And the flooring.
Yep.
Yeah, the flooring, it still sags every time I walk on it, but it's still good.
That's good.
I'm only kidding, of course. Either that or, oh, never mind.
You open yourself up for comment there, but we'll.
Exactly what I was doing.
Parks, just a quick update on gun range. Tomorrow, we're chip sealing the driveway in the back parking lot. That's through the RCO grant for the trap house. That's part of that project. We're also painting the clubhouse. We're doing that in-house with summer help. So they pressure washed last week and hoping next week with good weather that will paint that structure. Just a quick update on the trap houses themselves. Still working with the contractor to get those built along with the trap pad, shooting pads. Actually meaning a new operations manager on top of the project, in charge of the project tomorrow. He's flying in from San Diego tonight. We've had some issues with this company, just with their subcontractors. So working through those issues and still hoping to get built in the next 2 to 3 weeks, get that done before the fall school session comes around, because they get a lot of school shoots scheduled out there. So that's the plan of attack. Unfortunately, it's taking a little bit longer than we anticipated with the company, but had a really good conversation on the phone this morning. So hopefully we're finding a new subcontractor to work with through this company and make some progress out there. Last week was a challenging week, so hopefully we're past that.
And can you give us an update on where we are at the management change? We had heard that the club was looking for a change.
Yeah, their agreement with the county, Cowlitz Game and Anglers, runs through 2025. There's been some talk in some of our meetings about maybe wanting to get out of that a little bit earlier. Is that what you're talking about?
So this is Rick's problem. Okay, I'm fine.
Plus, it's his district. So-
Yeah, it is.
So there's been some talk about maybe drafting agreement to have them some out clauses. They're aging out, as you know, at that, well, all volunteer based at the game and anglers at the gun range. There is a sublease agreement in between the sheriff's office and the game and anglers that's in review right now. Actually, it was sent to the game and anglers this weekend. So I expect that to go back and forth. It might actually come to you guys after all reviews done through the sheriff's office, since they started this process, because they're indeed a sublease. Since the game and anglers lease the grounds, the sheriff's office has 100-yard range. They're looking for a sublease off the regular lease. So I expect to see that fairly soon in a final form.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about the public's confusion and concern. So when that's all done, we really should put out an informative piece, because the public thinks that the law enforcement people are trying to kick out the public and that kind of stuff.
Some people
Yeah.
have that impression.
Yeah, certainly not the case. They have their own range there and the public range is still open.
Yeah.
6 days a week, closed on Mondays. And then the trap range will now have 3 shooting pads. So it's actually expanding out there. They're doing a few more things on the archery range. So Game and Anglers wants to expand what they're doing. But like I said, they're aging out. So sooner or later, we'll have to make a decision of how to move forward. I would guess early next year in 2024, late spring, early summer, we'd have to go out to bid or not bid, but RFQ for maybe RFP for proposals of how to run the gun range, or it's gonna be a concessionaire, a third party, how that look with a government contract with the private sector. So it'll be challenging because there's not a lot of shooters out there for someone to run a business. Being volunteer based is great, but if they're trying to run salaries and keep it open that way, it's gonna be really challenging. So we'll have to look at how it looks money wise and how we, still get money for maintenance and lead abatement and all that fun stuff. Once we get, Game and Anglers is no longer on site.
So we've had some success with a camp host at Gardner Park. Is this an opportunity where that might also make sense to have a range host be a resident out
I
there?
didn't think about it that way. That certainly could be the case. Yeah, we pay a small stipend for the camp host out at Harry Gardner Park, mainly for internet and phone access out there since it's spotty and limited. And they help, check in people and check restrooms and, kick out people who shouldn't be there. And so it works out really well for our park team to have a camp host there. So that might be something we look at also at the gun range as an option. I think
As long as we're there, any update on Jim's project for LT1?
Actually, he's made the request, I think in the next week or two with Savannah to come to you guys and give you a full update. So we'll probably ask Kelly if we can get it on a Tuesday or Wednesday agenda, either next week or the week after.
What we've discovered with the collaborative meetings is a very strong interest on the part of the federal agencies that we operate under existing permits rather than having to go out and get all new permitting. And it's kind of like, bundling all the different projects together so that, there are a number of permits that have already been issued, and anything that fits with the purpose of those permits would avoid this long, very costly permitting process with the federal government. So that was, and Jim's project is one of those that would tail in on an existing permit. So
It's great news.
that was good news to hear. That was something that, believe it or not, the Corps is encouraging. So,
Then there's some of us who would just build it and show that it's a positive asset, so ask for forgiveness later. Rick's gonna be gone. Maybe you can coordinate when he's here before you do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it needs to be to all 3 commissioners. I believe that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at my age, you can't be sure I'll be here.
We'll check vacation calendars out for all 3 of you.
so I am curious as to where we are on the Kellyman Park, the Kellyman River Park. Last we heard, I think there was a restroom in the works, but we've not had any kind of grand opening or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of grand opening of a toilet.
Okay. All right.
We'll make sure Alyssa, we'll ask her to come next Monday and give you update on that project, any other projects at the parks. I know they are finishing up a project at Riverside also for the Frisbee golf.
Right.
They had the baskets out. I think they're also now working on the throwing pads. We're also, next week, we're chip sealing the Riverside parking lot, recycling center, along with 3 other recycling center parking lots. So it'll be a little improvement out there. That was one that gets potholes a lot, along with the Rose Valley one that will be chip sealing. So, yeah, I'll make sure she's here on Monday and give you a report.
The Parks is also putting together their 5-year plan. And that needs to be approved by the board.
Okay.
So she's probably pretty close to completing that.
Okay.
I know at the last park board meeting, it was really remarkable because I took the original plan and I made a bunch of changes which would typically amount to taking out a lot of language. And then that was kind of approved by Alyssa, and she submitted it to the government, to the RCO people. They looked at that and said, yeah, but this section here is superfluous. Take it out. And I'm thinking,
Wow.
whoa.
Wow.
So
We have some other documents you can do that too also.
big pardon?
We have some other documents you can do that too also if you have that
Oh,
much
okay.
power.
Good.
So, last week proved to be a bit problematic for building and facilities because of the heat and shut down or
Mainly HOJ,
close
correct.
to shutting down HOJ and give us an update on that, where we are. on
Yeah,
all
I
that.
actually asked maintenance to give you a full report next Monday with all the projects going on from jail HVAC, museum HVAC, and what they're doing at the annex. But yeah, last week they had some issues with a valve in HOJ that wasn't circulating the cold water to the facility. That's the only really way to keep that facility cold. And once they got somebody on site, I believe it was Wednesday to look at and fix it, the temperatures dropped pretty quickly, at least in the, not maybe in the office itself or the building itself, because it takes such a long time to come down, but actually where it was circulating, it dropped, that water temperature dropped 20 degrees with like a half hour. So it's really just one valve. The problem is, according to staff, there's like 100 of these valves in that facility. So yeah, one went bad and stopped the process of the water circulating, but not saying next week, one of the other 99 valves won't do the same thing. So just because we fixed one doesn't mean that the system's fixed. So
As long as you keep track of the name of the employee that fixed it. He's the expert now, right?
yeah, it was actually a third party. I believe it was
Oh.
Northwest Controls actually found the
Okay.
valve. Actually, I think after they were there only a few minutes, they were able to track it down fairly quickly.
Good.
It's just about getting that person off a different job site to our site.
And
Yeah, I can go on and on about that facility, but I'll stop.
how much elbow grease was required when it was hardly anything?
Hardly any. You're
Yeah,
correct.
see that good, but it bothers me also that it's not rocket science. And we really should not have gone through that. So somehow the staff has to get itself up to speed to understand what it is that they have in
Be
there.
able to find that as a team rather than a
Yeah,
third party.
and in terms of 99 valves, I don't, that doesn't sound right to me. There may be 99 valves, like in my house, there is a valve for the sink in the bathroom and so forth. But the real valve that counts is out in the street. So I'm just saying, because what that valve shut down, maybe it's such a lousy system that any valve takes down the whole system, but I doubt it.
I'll research that a little bit more for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. Sounded like it was a recirculation issue, and if one valve shut down, that I heard this in a 2-minute phone call, so I'll probably butcher it. But then the water to be able to circulate through the rest of the system, so it kind of holds itself.
Yeah, but that tells you almost immediately where the problem
The
is.
problem is, yeah,
Yeah.
as long as they have pressure points, we'll be able to see this, if where circulation is happening, where circulation is not happening, to find that valve, correct?
I would have Susan grab that broken bolt in her office, do a few curls as she walks over and says, is there a problem here?
We apologize, HOJ. I mean, that structure is already hard enough to keep cool even if things are running properly, let alone on a day. And of course, it breaks down during the 90-degree days and that heat, that building just ballooned up. So yeah, and even if I say even on good days, they usually start their day out maybe at 75 degrees, unlike this facility here, which usually starts its day out at 65 degrees. So.
I had another question on facilities and I am getting a number of emails from agencies talking about EV plugins. And I don't think the county has any, but we've got 600 employees and grant money is available to kind of install things. Is anybody working on a kind of a plan to say, we're going to try to provide what, 10% or 5%, whatever the standard is supposed to be for appropriate EV plugins?
We talked about internally, especially on public works side, about when we were working on that south parking lot for HOJ, if that was the timing to look at EVs plugins. I know you guys had some discussion maybe a month ago on a Tuesday meeting about grant possibilities for EVs and Cougar and believe Tootle area that
didn't go anywhere,
didn't move
right.
forward. So as we kind of said, well, for right now, maybe we want to put the effort into looking at county agencies if we're not going to go after those grant programs. So I guess I'll leave it up to you three. If you guys want us to move forward, find some EV sites or, parking lots here around this facility or HOJ or HHS or others, we certainly can look into that. But if that's something, a program you guys don't want to go after, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it.
You know, typically we don't do much in the way of running after grants, but being in the state of Washington, those mandates are going to come down to us sooner or later. And it's kind of like, if the money's available now, is it prudent to make the investment? And I don't think a lot of our employees have electrics or hybrids, but it's happening. I mean, there are some, so. I don't know.
But to think about that, my initial reaction is not so positive, but.
Yeah. I just want us to be open-minded so that we don't get stuck with a mandate without the funding because we didn't take advantage of it when the grants were available. But yeah, I mean, we're generally pretty reluctant to just run after the grants, but.
See, I look at that, the significant change would be for employees that are in and around here, e-bicycles. But doesn't work too nicely when it's pouring rain.
Anything else?
That's it from us, unless you have any more miscellaneous items for us.
I don't believe so.
No, I might ask you, old 99 is a county road, right?
Part of it.
And down by just north of the Shell station, which is by Todd Road, there's a section there, a beautiful pavement, brand new pavement. And I just curious as to, I don't remember that being a particularly bad spot.
I'm going to claim ignorance. I know
Fair enough.
somewhere in that area is where it transitions into the city because that facility that's going into just to the north of the gas station, the approach is in the county, but the facility's in the city. So somewhere in that area is where it transitions. So I don't know it off the top of my head because I don't drive that area.
Yeah, I'm
regularly.
pretty sure this has to be county, but in any event, I just both a sense of appreciation and a sense of trying to figure out whatever the underlying algorithm is that says this maybe 100-yard piece of the road got fixed beautifully. And just curious. And a lot of that trash that I'd mentioned just south of that was cleaned up. Was not a great job, but it was, a lot of it was gone. It's still, I can, if I had a bag with me, I could fill that bag up
We'll get back on it.
fairly closely, you know.
They said most of that trash they thought was blowing over from the Rebel truck stop. Is that what that you think it was, or was actually somebody that dumped
Oh,
stuff
no,
there?
it was,
Okay.
yeah, it was,
Maybe they went to the wrong area then, because what they reported back was there was a lot of wrappers and stuff that looked like it came from the Shell station, blew across the street. So maybe they need to go further down the street one way or the
there
other.
was some of that, but this really looked like someone on the way to the dump had their big old bag
Okay.
broke open and they said, oh, well, and kept on driving.
We'll take another gander.
Yeah, well, it's noticeable, but not disgusting like it was before. And, let's see, anything else?
I'm good.
How's the budgeting on your fuel pricing?
Yeah, visit Sean about that. Challenging. You know, we have surcharges in some of our contracts, including waste control or waste connections going to the landfill. So anything I believe over 3 something, we get surcharged on. So that's pretty good hit to us at the landfill. But yeah, it's up, that's for sure. And we, you know, most of all our equipment's diesel. So, and we run a fair amount of hours. So it's taking a hit into our budget. And so in the next 2 years, we're going to plan for these prices, if not a little bit higher in our 24, 25 budget. And oil prices are way up too for our chip seal
Yeah,
and overlay. Yeah, we didn't get quite the mileage you usually get for the same, not the bang for the buck in the overlay projects.
yeah. The Public Works shop is on Cloverdale
Mhm.
on the east side.
Yes, correct.
It's a pretty big fenced in area,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, pretty good lot. We have fuel price, we have fuel tanks there, diesel and gas, unleaded. That's our South County Reserve, and Castle Rock has our North County Reserve in case there's an emergency. We run it, but we make sure we have a lot of gallons in place in case there's an emergency in place.
Is there much activity out of there? Is anybody there 8 to 5 kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Monday through Thursday this time of year.
You all might be wondering what the hell I'm thinking about, right? Back in the old days, bicycle clubs had local time trials, which simply means you would sign up and you would go a distance and try to improve your time or be the best time. And remember when we had around the Monticello thing and then they put in the bumps? Because of the way the pavement was, I was afraid in that criterion that somebody would get hurt because they had little rails and that that can be dangerous and be liability, obvious liability, extra liability for the county. But a time trial isn't. Every minute you go off and they time you and you come back and usually there's a prize at the end that amounts to the tube of cement or something. But it would be pretty reasonable to do a time trial from that point to the end of Cloverdale and back. So just in case it ever comes up that we need to do something in parks and rec in combination with a bicycle club.
Gotcha. Okay.
The end of Cloverdale is right at the end of the the bike trail. The creek
Well,
goes-
actually,
Where
that's
the creek goes under the freeway.
right. It's actually not the end of the bike trail because the bike trail deviated up Green Mountain.
Yeah.
Which effectively ends it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
thank you. Anything else, gentlemen?
I don't think so.
Okay, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.